Hey, I recently found myself in a familiar situation of needing to upgrade my phone. I've had my Pixel 2 for 2 years, it's served me well. It came to time to look for what else was out there. Now, I actually considered that the Pixel 4 was going to be my obvious next choice. I loved the Pixel series up till now. I had the Nexus series before that. So it was really a case of hoping, as the Pixel 4 leaked throughout 2019, that there was going to be a few more aces up its sleeve and it was going to pull some tricks out of the hat. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, so I was forced to look elsewhere, and what I ended up going with was the OnePlus 7T. So in this video, I really want to cover people who are in my situation, coming from a 2-year-old phone, and whether they should go for a OnePlus 7T. I've been using it for a few weeks now. Here are my initial thoughts on it and whether you should consider it as well. So I'm going to approach this as a comparison video, basically my experience moving from the Pixel 2 to the 7T, what I liked moving from a pure Google experience to the 7T, what I didn't like, and whether it worked for me and how I feel about it. So first things first, let's start with the physical differences. The first thing I noticed was the size of the phone. Obviously, coming from Pixel 2, that's much smaller and fits in my hand a lot better. There was a bit of a stark contrast going to phone with a 6.5-inch screen. Saying that, it was nothing that a few weeks of using it didn't solve. It was just a case of getting to grips with how I want to use it, and that quickly passed. So obviously when it comes to phones, most physical aspects are the same, especially when it comes to the buttons on them. You get the power button, you get the volume rocker, and the thing that the 7T added that the Pixel 2 didn't have was the ringer switch. Now obviously this has been a staple on iPhone since the first one ever launched. It's a bit of a novelty to me. I've never had an Android phone with a ringer switch until I moved to the 7T, and to be honest, it's not really a big deal for me. It's actually more of a risk that I'm going to switch it on loud when I'm taking it out of my pocket or taking it out of a bag, and if you're running into a cinema or a meeting and then you don't realise that you've done this, it's going to be a bit bigger risk than obviously not having it at all. Maybe that's just a bit of a learning curve for me. Again, not really that much of a game changer. I'll tell you what is a game changer though. It is the 90Hz screen. This has a 6.5-inch 90Hz screen, still 1080p, but this is the smoothest thing I've ever seen. And Android historically has had a massive issue with being as smooth as the iPhone or competing with the kind of polish that the iPhone has always had. And obviously Android has improved that over the years, but the 90Hz screen really where things get better. The 90Hz screen is amazing and you get used to it pretty quickly. And to be honest, for me, I only notice not having it more than I notice having it. So using a friend's iPhone or another phone that doesn't have a 90Hz screen or is stuck on 60Hz, you notice how jaggy it feels, you kind of basically crave going back to your 90Hz screen, and that is one of the things that is a must-have for any phone I have. From this point on, it needs to have a 90Hz screen or something like the Razer phone that's a 120Hz screen, and even better. Also, the phone's not only just physically bigger, but it is a bit heavier as well. So the Pixel 2 comes in at 145 grams, and obviously with its small form factor, there's plenty of factors why that is, but this is over 200 grams, and it is just it's a stark difference really. And then you add a case onto it as well. It can get heavy, especially if you're doing the old finger hold on your little finger. I've had it early on where I just wasn't used to it and it was quite heavy. Basically, I need to train my little finger. And finally, in terms of the physical features, it's the finish of the phones that are quite contrasting. The OnePlus 7T just looks really nice. It's got this I've got it in glacier blue. It's got this nice sheen and quite metallic finish. It's incredibly smooth though, so if you wanted to use this without a case, that's much more difficult than using something like the Pixel 2, even the Pixel 3, and even the Pixel 4, which has that coated aluminium coated glass finish that just makes it a bit more tactile and just easier to hold. So the second thing I really noticed about the 7T over the Pixel 2 was its audio quality. You have to remember, you are buying a phone. A phone fundamentally needs to have good audio, enough that you can make phone calls, especially on loudspeaker, which I do quite often while I'm doing other bits and just trying to get stuff done, and this is incredible. The audio on this is so loud and so clear that I haven't had any complaints in terms of it coming back into the microphone, and the microphone cancellation that OnePlus have included in this is incredible. I used to get a few complaints from time to time when using my Pixel 2 in an echoey room or in another situation where it's more difficult to be heard. The 7T just doesn't have that problem at all. No one's complained about noise issues or not being able to hear me clearly. This is actually something that people forget about quite easily, but a phone needs to be a phone, and the 7T does that really well. So I've got the screen, I've got good audio. Next thing people care about are the cameras. The Pixel 2 is famous for its single lens shooter that does everything by the magic of Google's algorithms, makes pictures look perfect, point and shoot, don't have to worry about it. And to be honest, that's what I loved about it. With the 7T, you've got the 2019 trifecta of cameras. You have your single lens shooter, which is 40 megapixel, you have your wide angle lens, and you also have your 2x telephoto zoom lens. And to me, these are a bit of a novelty, and I often find myself personally missing my Pixel 2 camera. I loved the fact that the Pixel 2, I could pick it out of my pocket, take a photo, I probably didn't even need to check it, and then I could edit it later or whatever. I just stick it straight up on Instagram because it's good enough. With the 7T, I'm finding I need to check that it's in focus. It's just the lighting's right. I don't need to change anything. I just basically need to give the photos I take on this a bit more care and a bit more attention. And I'm not that photographer. If you like those manual controls, that's fine. For me, I just like point and shoot and not having to worry about it, and having a good camera in 95% of situations. For me, wide angle lenses and telephoto lenses are good and they are useful, but to me they're only useful in 5% of situations. So I miss my Pixel 2 camera. So if that's a big thing, maybe you want to continue looking at the Pixel 4 or something over the 7T. And the final difference that I noticed between moving from the Pixel 2 to the 7T in terms of physicality and the physical aspects of the phone was this little bad boy. I definitely missed the rear fingerprint sensor, and it's not that I'm against front-facing fingerprint sensors. Granted, I've not used them for a long time. Basically, the Pixel and the Nexus 6P before that, and the Nexus 5 potentially. I can't remember that far back. Might have had one as well, but I'm just used to it. The speed of the Pixel 2's unlocking is very famous. It's incredible, really reliable. The OnePlus 7T, unfortunately, just doesn't get that as well. It has a built-in fingerprint sensor under the screen, so you get that full screen effect and it kind of pops out of nowhere. And it also has Face ID. Don't get me wrong, having both Face Unlock and fingerprint sensor covers me most of the time, but I have noticed needing to use my screen unlock a little bit more often on the 7T than I ever needed to on the Pixel 2. Another big point of why I moved to the 7T over other phones like the Samsung S10 or anything like that was the software. So OnePlus 7T uses Oxygen OS, which has been updated to Android 10, and that's a big factor. This shipped with Android 10, the latest version. A lot of other manufacturers are slow to do that, so congrats to OnePlus for being so quick with it. And this is important to me because I've always enjoyed a pure Android experience. There's no bloatware, there's no weird skins, there's no weird keyboards I need to worry about. It is going to be consistent when I move from phone to phone to phone, and I'm used to how it works. And I love that OnePlus has kept that. And Oxygen OS, for the most part, is brilliant. It's everything that you want. But there are a few quirks that I have noticed, and I want them to run them by you, because for me, going from a pure Android experience to some of the choices that OnePlus have made for Oxygen OS, they seem a bit quirky to me. To be fair to OnePlus, it's less of a quirk and more of a choice, and it's something that I definitely miss off the Pixel 2 is Google Now. On the Pixel 2, you just slide to the left and you get everything that's personalized to you. It takes into account what you've been looking at on your laptops, on your Google account basically, and then delivers you hand-picked news, and you get to tailor it, saying you want things from certain publications or you want things from on certain topics, and it shows you your shares and everything like that. It's just great. It was just a succinct way of seeing things that I cared about. This doesn't exist on the OnePlus, and I have heard that there are ways to get it from my research on Reddit, the ways you can get it is switching launcher, which I never like to do. I'm always kind of a stock guy, but basically I'm a very basic Android dude. And then there are other ways where people are saying you can add the widget onto this little launcher that OnePlus has, but that doesn't really give you any options. The only way to get Google Now is basically to go into the Google app, which I find myself doing actually because I do miss the news and the articles it shows me. So the next two actually are quirks for me, and to me this is where OnePlus have changed best practice in my eyes. First up is the fact that when you click a folder on the home screen, it opens from the bottom of the page always. No matter if your folder is at the top right, is at the bottom left, is in the middle left, it opens from the bottom. That's just bad UX. Everyone knows, and Apple have been doing this for ages on Mac OS as well as iPhone. At the point of tap, you want to open from that area to make sure it's easier for the user to select what they want. With this solution that OnePlus has put in, it just makes things a bit harder, especially if you're using it one-handed, where you have to shuffle the phone around to get to the bottom of the screen if you're near the top anyway. And with a phone this big, you will find that most people will have to do that little dance in their right hand or left hand just to get the phone where they want to be to tap it. So that's one thing I've noticed. The second thing is the absence of the peek feature. And the best way to describe this or to show this is using the Boost app, which is what I use for Reddit. So a lot of Android apps now use that swipe out pane that gives you additional context to whatever app you're using. Boost does the same, and when we didn't have gesture navigation, we had the 3 buttons at the bottom, that wasn't an issue because you swiped and that was the only function of that swipe, was to bring out those panes. But now we've got gesture navigation baked into Android 10, so a swipe on the edge of the screen now means you go back, so that hinders the actual function of, or the access to those side panels. And on the Pixel 2 had a really nice solution for this, where you used to press and hold slightly. The slide panel would peek out and you used to drag it across fully. But now with the OnePlus 7T and with gesture navigation on, you find it a lot more difficult to do that. It's not clear how to best access this, but it turns out if you go up and then out, you're more likely to access the side panel.
Ah, does it? Fucking hell, it's hard though.
And this, again, is not that big of a game changer, but to me, you had a good solution with the peak method and you've changed it to something else. And also, this is quite hard to find out. I had to find out on Reddit, when in the OnePlus subreddit, that this was how you'd access these panes. And this was actually, if I remember correctly, a reason why Marques Brownlee doesn't use gesture navigation on the OnePlus 7T or the OnePlus 7T Pro. He actually sticks to the 3-button configuration just because he finds he needs to access those side panels a lot more. So if you want to do that, that is an option as well. Now coming to performance, the 7T just blows the Pixel 2 out of the water as you'd expect. The Pixel 2 is a 2-year-old phone. This ships with the Snapdragon 855 Plus, so that offers higher and faster clock speeds for both the GPU and the CPU. So if you're worried about gaming, don't be. This beasts it. I was recently with a bunch of friends and we played Call of Duty Mobile, and we had loads of different phones in the room. We had everything from an iPhone 8 to a Galaxy S7 for one of my less tech-savvy friends. We had a Note 10 and we had the Huawei Mate 20 Pro as well. So we had a nice range of devices and mine just performed incredibly well. And considering this phone starts at £549 in the UK, considering all these other phones are much more expensive or quite a bit more expensive, this just performed incredibly, kept up with them, or if not outperformed them by just staying cooler when running the game as well. So if you're worried about performance on this phone, don't be in terms of playing games. So one thing to notice though, is even with 8 gigs of RAM in the 7T, I've noticed my OnePlus closing my apps a bit prematurely. I expected things to stay open a bit longer than they would, and again from Reddit what people have said is that's very much due to OnePlus's battery management. I've not really looked into it much further. I just expect some apps to stay open longer, especially when I'm multitasking and they've not been open that long. It's happened a few times, not that long, and because it's the battery management, apparently it learns how you use your phone and it will keep apps you want open longer. And I can say that after 2 weeks, it definitely did learn how to do that a bit better, and I'm not having the issue as much anymore. I just thought it was worth mentioning because the 4GB in the Pixel 2 never really failed me unless I had loads of things running, and I never do, so I'm just surprised the 8GB sometimes feels like it can't handle it, even though it can. The final reason someone's looking to upgrade a 2-year phone is the battery. The Pixel 2 battery, according to AccuBattery, was still around 97% battery health, but you have to remember it only ships with a 2700 mAh battery. The 7T ships with a 3800 mAh battery, and that is more than enough to get you through the day. The other day I was checking it, I had just under 4 hours of screen on time, and it was at 50% essentially. So this can last you a full day easily on moderate use, and it will just last a full day, I think, on very intense use. I mean quite intense use. You have to remember it also ships with the warp charge, which is 30-watt warp charging, which OnePlus says will get you from 0%, so a properly dead phone, to 70%, which again will last you a full day, and that will happen in 30 minutes. So for this, the battery is amazing in this. So one thing to keep in mind is that if you ever do find yourself caught short and needing a quick charge, this ships with a 30-watt warp charger, which means you can charge a phone from 0% to 70% within 30 minutes. The fact that I've never had to rely on that or use that, and I'm doing okay with my portable chargers that are 18 watt just to top it up every now and then if I'm staying out after work or something like that, is testament to the fact of a good battery in this anyway. Whether it will last and how I feel about it in a year or so is only time will tell. So there you have it. Those are my initial thoughts of the 7T, especially coming from Pixel 2. I thought there's a bit of contrast. There's some things it does better, some things it does worse. So if you're in a similar situation, hopefully this video has helped you. I'm going to do a more in-depth look at the cameras to dive deeper into the pictures that I like on the Pixel 2 and on the 7T. For two reasons mainly. One, to help you guys decide. Two, just to make sure it's not all in my head. I'm not nostalgically loving the Pixel 2 or being unfair to the 7T. I just want to give it a bit of a shoot off and see which one does better. So if you're interested in that, subscribe, and I'm sure it'll pop into your YouTube feed in the next few weeks. So in summary, 7T, solid choice, £549, you get twice the RAM, twice the storage. It's a lot bigger than the Pixel 2, which was the biggest deal for me, but in many ways it's still great. Will I go back to Google? That's the big question, and for me I think yes, mainly because, like I said, it's the size. I think I prefer the smaller form factor. I know a lot of people don't, so if that's not an issue for you, this is the phone you want to get. So hopefully you found this video useful. Have you made the switch from an older phone or a Pixel 2 to a OnePlus device or any other? What do you recommend? Let me know in the comments section below. I've been Tree from Technology. Take it easy and I'll see you next time.